Project 2025 has a plan to sort of wipe the slate clean of any pre-existing problems. What they say is this: conduct an immediate comprehensive review of all major active FBI investigations and activities and terminate any that are unlawful or contrary to the national interest. This sounds like it could have come from a Trump campaign release, and it demonstrates why being elected is so important to him. Think back to the original plan. Put people in positions of authority who will toe the company line. Well, a new attorney general can look at every indictment against Donald Trump and determine it's not in the best interest of the national interest. Oh, those are just old things. That would just bring up problems we need to get past. He's president again, and we don't want to put the country through a trial of a sitting president. Project 2025 proposes a world where Donald Trump is elected and there will be no federal criminal case against him anywhere in the country. They go further. Promptly and properly eliminating lawless policies, investigations, and cases, including all existing consent decrees. When I was a deputy legal director at the American Civil Liberties Union in New York City, I supervised projects that brought lawsuits against metropolitan police departments across America. And in some of those cases, consent decrees were entered, decrees where the court would oversee what was going on in that police department. The lawyers who worked on those cases put in thousands of hours gathering evidence to prove major problems within these police departments. If those consent decrees are removed, all of that work that went into changing policy and practice and holding officers accountable will be lost. Project 2025 ain't done. They want to issue guidance to all U.S. attorneys emphasizing the importance of prosecuting immigration offenses and immigration-related offenses. Although this is not directly related to anti-black racism, the immigration policies advanced by Project 2025 are so completely consistent with the exercise of anti-black racism that their request is virtually identical to what they want to do in other Department of Justice venues. Erase the history so we can do what we want. The MAGA concept of going back is in full force with the policy proposals for the Department of Justice. And we'll be going back all right, but not to a time when America was great for anybody who wasn't white and male. Project 2025 has got ideas for the Department of Labor and related agencies. Jobs that pay wages that allow all families to have the opportunity to thrive are a key to any economy. And the facts from our history demonstrate clearly that anti-black racism impacted job and business building opportunities beginning immediately after the quarter millennium, 246 years, of enslaving people for free labor through the signing of the Constitution and the Civil War. In light of that, what does Project 2025 want? Well, they want to reverse the DEI revolution in labor policy. They want to eliminate racial classifications and critical race theory trainings. And they want to issue an executive order banning and have Congress pass a law prohibiting the federal government from using taxpayer dollars to fund all critical race theory trainings. Yet once again, the plan is to erase the history and the impact of anti-black racism on gainful employment from all Department of Labor activities like it never happened. But they don't stop there. Come back for more. If you thought Project 2025 had an interesting view for the Department of Labor, wait till you hear what they want for the EEOC. Eliminate EEO-1 data collection. The Equal Opportunity Employment Commission collects EEO-1 data on employment statistics based on race, ethnicity, and that data can be used to support a charge of discrimination under a disparate impact theory. Now, this could lead to racial quotas to remedy alleged racial discrimination. The Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs also has the right to use this data. crudely characterizing employees by race or ethnicity fails to recognize the diversity of the American workforce and forces individuals into categories that do not fully reflect their racial and ethnic heritage. Really? They're calling the identification of race and ethnicity crudely characterizing employees when those characteristics are the exact ones that have been used to limit opportunities and employment for those folks for more than 150 years. They say this information could lead to unlawful racial quotas, and so it should be eliminated. Translated, that just means we ain't concerned with this data. You're on your own. And they want to eliminate what's called disparate impact liability as a valid theory for discrimination for race and other cases under Title VII and other laws. This is what Project 2025 is saying. Disparities do not and should not legally imply discrimination per se. The president should sign an executive order explicitly forbidding the use of disparate impact in these kinds of analysis. Well, disparate impact is a way to prove discrimination without showing deliberate KKK card-carrying racism in many kinds of cases. And since this theory has been validated by the U.S. Supreme Court, it appears that what Project 2025 is suggesting is that these agencies simply use a different theory in evaluating their cases. So much for respect for the law. People are policy, and if you appoint the right people, they'll do what they're told. Come back for more about the Department of Treasury. Project 2025 is going to talk about the Department of Treasury because that's the money. Is there really a systemic effort to erase the true factual role of anti-black racism and redefine racism as providing remedies and assistance to people who were discriminated against because of their race? If it was systemic, you definitely see evidence of that when we're talking about the money. And as I said, Project 2025 is all over the Department of the Treasury. Secretary Yellen introduced the Treasury Department's fiscal year 2022-2026 strategic plan, and Project 2025 condemned it as mission drift. This is what they didn't like. The Secretary of the Treasury said, "We will have to address the structural problems that have plagued our economy for decades. The decline in labor force participation, income and racial inequality, and serious underinvestment in crucial public goods like children, education, and physical infrastructure. And then there are rising challenges like climate change, which, left unchecked, will undermine every aspect of our economy from supply chains to the financial system." Project 2025 says that is mission drift. A focus on income and racial inequality is mission drift. Serious underdevelopment in child care education and for physical infrastructure, mission drift. And the additional proof of the Treasury's woke agenda comes from a comparison of their domestic finance department's responsibilities. They say, look at 2015 and 2023. Well, in 2015, domestic finance said, we work to preserve confidence in U.S. Treasury security markets, effectively manage federal fiscal operations, strengthen financial institutions and markets, promote access to credit, and improve financial access and education in service of America's long-term economic strength and stability. That was fine. Here comes the mission creep. Domestic finance works to support equitable and sustainable economic growth and financial stability through policies to increase the resilience of financial institutions and markets and financial well-being of consumers, and to increase access to credit for small businesses and low to moderate income communities. In 2015, it's all about the money. In 2023, it's not just promoting making money, but promoting making money in a way that will help everyone. Come back because there's more to this problem. Back to Project 2025 and the Treasury Department. Their view is this: focus only on the money. Let them eat cake if they can find the cake. That's what we saw last time. And they get even more specific. Project 2025 says this: the next conservative administration should take affirmative steps to expose and eradicate the practice of critical race theory and diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the Treasury Department. What they're saying is, we will erase black and brown people from our sphere of concern. That's the way it always was and the way it will be again. MAGA. And here are the steps that Project 2025 wants to take. Number one, identify every Treasury official who participated in DEI initiatives and interview him or her for the purpose of determining the scope and nature of these initiatives and to ensure such initiatives are completely ended. This sounds like a loyalty interrogation to me. Do people have to confess and say, I'm sorry I led one of those initiatives? Project 2025 says more. Treat the participation in any critical race theory or DEI initiative without objecting on constitutional or moral grounds as per se grounds for termination of employment. I checked to make sure I read this right. If you go to a CRT or DEI initiative and you don't object to going on constitutional or moral grounds, they can fire you. That is indoctrination of the purest and most evil kind. They go on. Make public immediately all communications relating to the work of the Treasury's critical race theory and DEI initiatives, and expose and make public all training materials and initiatives designed to single out any race, ethnicity, or sex for special treatment. The administration should eliminate the 25-member Treasury Advisory Committee on Racial Equity. I got no problem with looking at DEI materials. If they're made public, the more the better. That sounds fine. Using words like expose negatively characterizes the documents in a way that the facts contained in the documents won't support. And the elimination of the Treasury Advisory Committee on Racial Equity just makes it clear that in all spaces, especially where money is involved, DEI and racial justice have no place. We will pretend we are colorblind and everything will be fine, just like when America was great. Project 2025 also has thoughts about the Federal Trade Commission. We're still talking about money, and the theme from the Treasury Department continues. Project 2025 says this: America's antitrust laws are over a century old. In 1890, the U.S. Congress enacted the Sherman Act. The Clayton Act, adopted in 1914, builds on the Sherman Act. Recently, however, many in the conservative movement point out that the authors of our antitrust laws did not intend this purely economic understanding of competitive markets and the normative assumptions that undergird it to guide their legislation. Translated, what that means is, we want less restrictions on our ability to make more money, and concerns about groups that are not us just get in the way. So here's what Project 2025 says: ESG practices as a cover for anti-competitive activity and possible unfair trade practices. They say it has long been suspected and is now increasingly documented that corporate social advocacy on issues ranging from diversity, equity, and inclusion to environmental, social, and governance, ESG, those movements serve to launder corporate reputation and perhaps obtain favorable treatment from government actors. They're saying companies are just doing this stuff to wash their reputations for the community at large and for the government. Why else would corporations be concerned with ideas of racial justice? But Project 2025 doesn't just stop there. They say this: Congress should investigate ESG practices as a cover for anti-competitive activity and possible unfair trade practices. The business of American business is business, not ideology. What happened to those American ideals that were so important? And is racial justice an ideology or a principle that is one of those American ideals we're supposed to follow? Or does it just not matter? We got more from Project 2025 and the Federal Trade Commission. They say Congress should investigate ESG practices as a cover for anti-competitive activity and possible unfair trade practices, because the business of American business is business, not ideology. Well, what happened to those American ideals that were so important? Is racial justice an ideology or a principle that's one of those American ideals? Well, Project 2025 goes on to tell you exactly what they believe. They say that corporations should, in their words, pursue profits for shareholders, bringing about economic growth. Managers, particularly in public traded companies, who use their power to advance sets of fashionable moral beliefs, such as ESG and DEI, introduce agency problems into the shareholder relationship, and get this, they say it appropriates corporate wealth for their own benefit. How dare you be concerned with anything but my money? I want your mind on my money and my money on your mind. Forget DEI, ESG, and everything else. Folks, we've made a number of videos discussing how anti-black racism flows through the entire plan created by Project 2025. Please give them all a look. Inform yourself about what is at stake. If you don't want to live in a world designed by Project 2025, then do something about it with your vote.